Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Business 110D Culture Project presentation. My name is Ian Clark, and today I'm going to be teaching you about the country of Israel. First, what do you know about Israel, and why would you want to conduct business in that country? Israel has a very strong economy with a high GDP per capita of around $44,000 per person, which is about 6 to 10 times that of surrounding nations, which makes them an economic leader in the region. They're a hotbed for technological innovation with a ratio of tech R&D to GDP, which is among the highest in the world. And they're fourth in the world for scientific activity, at least in terms of science publications per million citizens. And they're innovators and leaders in a variety of sectors, including solar, defense, diamonds, and computer science. They have strong economic ties to the US. They are the US's 23rd largest goods trading partner, with around $47 billion worth of goods and services traded in 2019. And they're also a major tourist destination. They had 4.5 million tourists in 2019, and many Jewish people visit holy sites in and around Jerusalem as part of their spiritual journey. These are a few of the good reasons to do business with the country of Israel, but there's a lot you have to know to avoid dangerous or embarrassing situations. First, you have to understand a little bit about the history of Israel. The population comes from a European Jewish background, a mix of Western Europe and Eastern Europe, and it was settled by Jews fleeing genocide both in Ukraine in the 1920s and World War II in the 1940s. Shortly after they settled, they were met with more violence as civil war broke out immediately after their statehood in the year 1948 between Jewish settlers and the native Palestinians. And to this day, there's still more violence. There's an ongoing fight with Palestinian Muslims for an entire country and a shared Holy Land, which is Jerusalem. The country of Israel has a compulsory military service. Every man and woman must serve in the military if they are able. And they have a standing military of over 650,000 personnel, which is over 7% of their population. It's very common to see men and women armed and in uniform throughout the country doing normal everyday things. Here's a quick view of the history of Israel. It started in 1947 with the country of Palestine. You can see the green is the country of Palestine, and then it was partitioned in 1947, roughly split in half. And then between 1949 and 1967, the country of Israel grew and grew and grew until the present day. There's actually very little of Palestine left. As far as religion goes, Israel is officially a Jewish state. The state-sanctioned religion is Judaism. It is not a strictly Orthodox state, but it is very, very common to observe Sabbath on Friday and Saturday, so there's virtually nothing going on those days. You will not be able to go to the bank or get something to eat or do anything. Everybody takes a day off, and it is also very common to see a kosher diet in and around Israel. Their system of laws is much like the United States, a common law system, so very familiar court system and very similar legal structure, and the way that they understand and interpret laws is basically like we do here. One major difference that we see is that there is no formal constitution. There's no written document outlining all of the basic human rights that are given to people, but there are basic laws, is what they're called, to protect human rights, and basic laws can actually supersede their other laws. So if a law conflicts with a basic law, which is designed to protect human rights and dignity, then the basic law would essentially trump that law. So traveling through Israel, how to get around, getting and staying there. Money and language, they use the new shekel. The new shekel is around 31 cents, so roughly 3 new shekels to the dollar. Pretty easy to do the math there. The language is the Hebrew and Arabic are spoken throughout. Primarily, you will see Hebrew in the major city centers like Tel Aviv. English is very, very widely spoken, though, so you should be able to get around just using English. The majority of the population does speak it, but a few phrases that can help you out if you need are shalom, is hello and goodbye. That's a very, very common greeting. Ken means yes, lo means no. And you can say bevashka for please, or mayim, which is water. Water is very important, seeing as you are in the desert. As far as getting and staying in Israel, right now you will probably not be doing that. You can travel to Tel Aviv, the major city, and go around there, but COVID restrictions are in place, so that is challenging. And there has also been an increase in terrorism and violence and civil unrest throughout the south and central of the country. So major cities like Jerusalem are seeing rocket fire actively right now. And the United States State Department also says do not travel to Israel. They mentioned specifically that they will not aid U.S. citizens who venture too close to Gaza or the West Bank, which are the centers of the fighting. Israeli culture. Food is a big part of their culture. Their food is a mix of Arabian cuisine and traditional Jewish cuisine. It incorporates a lot of Middle Eastern and Mediterranean ingredients. But if you travel to Israel and go to the supermarkets, you will see most of the fruits, veggies, meats that we see at home, in spite of the fact that they have less than 20% arable land. So it's very, very difficult to farm in Israel, and Israel has actually taken great measures to be able to farm their land. And that's one of the ways in which they are a technological leader, is they have found very innovative ways to farm arid land. You will also see lots of kosher products in the grocery stores. Kosher diets, again, are very common. So when you're eating, you may encounter that. As far as sightseeing goes, there's a lot to do in Israel. There are so many places of religious significance. The Judaic, Christian, and Islamic religions all consider Jerusalem a holy city. So pretty much every major religion that we see here in the world considers Jerusalem to be a holy city, and it contains historical sites for all of these major Abrahamic religions, like the Temple Mount, the Western Wall, the Tower of David. And so it is a very, very popular place to go for many people in the world. On top of that, there are natural beauties like the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is famously so salty that you will float in it. You cannot drown or sink in the Dead Sea. And its mud is often used as a topical agent. It's supposed to be good for your skin. Who knows? Socializing, this is the important thing. So when socializing, Israelis are very physical people. They'll often engage in physical contact, such as touching arms, patting backs, holding hands, putting your arms around them, things like that. That is very, very common and very, very normal among, all folks. The strictly religious people will not do that with folks of the opposite gender, but that is common to see out and about. Maintaining eye contact is important. It shows that you are interested in the conversation, and it is actually considered rude to look away or look down when you are talking to somebody. It seems a little suspicious. Relationships are very, very important, and people work hard and make sacrifices to maintain them. So typically the social network, the social circles are valued very, very highly in Israel. What to do out and about. Getting coffee is sort of the default way to socialize, similarly to how it is here in the US, especially in professional relationships. If you don't know what to do with someone, or you don't know what to ask them to do, perhaps suggest getting a cup of coffee. And Tel Aviv is not necessarily known as a party town, but it has restaurants, bars, nightclubs, entertainment, things like that. So if you go to the big city, you will find that sort of stuff. Oh boy, the business culture. This is where it gets good. So business is very fast paced in Israel. It is conducted with a sense of inherent urgency. Quick haggling and negotiating is commonplace. And for some business cultures, it's hard to keep up. People want to move quickly. The business structure is somewhat loose and non-hierarchical. They don't place too much importance on who's the boss and who's not. The emphasis is actually placed on solutions. So lower ranking people are given an equal platform based on their merit. If they have a good idea, they will be allowed to speak, they will be given credit, and they will be listened to. So it's a little more of a low context culture in terms of business hierarchy. In terms of business communication, just like regular communication there, direct is preferred. It is considered rude to obscure or conceal information. It is also typically a very casual business environment. While they like to work quickly, they are fine with interruptions from personal phone calls and visits. Again, that has to do with the importance they place on relationships. If somebody needs something from them, that's more important than whatever business that they're doing at the time. It also seems to be less agenda focused and more solution focused. The business agendas are not rigid. They want to get solutions to their problems, and if they can do that without sticking to an agenda, that seems to be just fine in general. Most Israeli business persons speak English, so it is fine to go over there speaking English. It is rare that you will meet somebody in business that does not. And again, direct communication is preferred. However, one thing you may encounter is that interrupting people or speaking over them or seemingly arguing is commonplace. That's considered normal in terms of how they communicate. So if somebody starts yelling over you and saying, hey, wait, but, that is normal. Don't take it personally. And that is just how it is done over there. So that's a lot of great information. And probably the most important thing that we can talk about today are some of the traps and the pitfalls in Israel. Israel can be a dangerous place. There are ways in which you can put yourself in a pretty high amount of risk. So we're going to talk about how to avoid that. Politics and religion is a hotbed, being a religious state and a warring one at that. Don't talk about it. That's the important thing. If someone mentions something about politics or religion, remain quiet and neutral. You don't need to offer your opinion, and you don't need to offer support for any sides. When you are visiting religious sites there, make sure you dress modestly. Women should not wear short skirts. Men typically will be covering their heads. So there are a series of rules such as those. Those are the main ones, though. Just dress modestly, dress politely. Big one, do not bring Islamic materials or the Quran or toy weapons or anything that may draw suspicion to you. And do not wear clothing with political or religious affiliations or statements. This will definitely make people keep an eye on you and probably talk about you, and it will probably cause some issues. So remain neutral. Just leave politics and religion to the locals. That's the important thing. Travel. Number one, stay away from the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. This is where the greatest amount of violence is. The West Bank and the Gaza Strip is kind of the last Palestinian holdout, and it is the site of a tremendous amount of terrorism from both sides. There are atrocities being committed regularly in these areas. And like I had said previously, the US government will not do anything for you if you venture too close to the Gaza Strip or the West Bank. We've got a handy little map to tell you where they are. Tel Aviv is due west of the West Bank, ironically. So the cities, the major metropolitan areas are going to be kind of adjacent to the West Bank.